Hey everybody, I'm going to get started with your with your notes today. We're looking today at the impact of the Enlightenment. So this new unit that we're starting is on revolutions, which are like the Atlantic revolutions that that kind of kicked off on both sides of the Atlantic that we'll talk about more in detail next week, and then also it's about the Industrial Revolution. But underlying both of those things is is the Enlightenment. So we're going to talk about the Enlightenment today, what that is, what some of the ideas were here, and then the impact that that has on society. Okay, um, so so that's our central question today: is what was the impact of the Enlightenment? Okay, so Enlightenment thinkers challenged the divine right of kings. They argued for liberty and rights. Now, the divine right of kings was the idea that that kings had God's approval for their for their rule over people. So the Enlightenment thinkers start to challenge that and say, you know what, people should have liberty. They should be able to choose their, or have a say in their leaders. That the leaders get their power from the consent of the governed. In other words, they have to have the consent of the people, the permission of the people in order to rule. And they argued that people are endowed with certain natural rights. And we get these from the ideas of John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and others that are Thomas Hobbes, all sorts of different different people contributed to this in Europe in this time that we call the Enlightenment. During this time, they have salons, which are like discussion parties. This is not where you get your hair done, but they're discussion parties that people had to talk about some of these ideas. They had those helped spread new ideas across Europe. These salons that they had, especially in France, is where these are really popular. High literacy rates also help spread these ideas because you because you can read what people are writing about these new ideas, and cheap printing, because printing was invented in the 1500s, and then printing makes these ideas that much more able to be spread across Europe and eventually across the Atlantic to the New World as well. So you have salons, high literacy rates, and cheap printing all help spread new ideas across Europe and then eventually to the New World. So these theories inspired a variety of new ideas in art, music, gender, economics, government. So you have you have lots of changes, and you have, we don't get into art history that much, but you do have some changes there. We have, music, we don't get into that much either. But gender, you have kind of the rise of the feminist movement. You have new economic ideas that come from Adam Smith, and you have new governmental ideas as well that are happening around this time. So Enlightenment ideals of perfection and reason gave rise to neoclassical art. And I need to hide this. There we go. So you have Jean-Baptiste Simeon Cardin and Jacques Louis David are some important kind of Enlightenment era neoclassical artists. Art in the Enlightenment was simple, elegant, and focused on Greek style. So we're kind of like the Renaissance, going back to Greek and Roman styles with the Enlightenment as well. Music composers released new elegant styles of music known as classical music. So classical music comes from the Enlightenment. Franz Joseph Haydn, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Beethoven, all classical music. You've probably heard of some of these before. If you've heard of musicians from the past, you've probably heard these names. And music became a popular art that people went to concerts to hear. So you have the rise of music as an art that people actually go to hear played live in concerts. That's when all this starts, is around the time of the Enlightenment. Now, and so this stuff can go under your culture box in your pieces chart, and then that's I'm just going over that pretty quickly. So we don't need to worry about the details there. Okay, one of the most important Enlightenment ideas was the theory of capitalism. Okay, capitalism is kind of born out of the Enlightenment. Before this, we have mercantilism, which is more focused on how much you export and import, and gaining bullion, these precious metals in your trade. But but in the Enlightenment, you have the idea of capitalism kind of coming to the forefront, and what's called laissez-faire economics. Okay, this is this is pushed forward by the Scottish professor Adam Smith, and here are kind of the tenets of capitalism. He says individuals and businesses own property and the means of production. Okay, so in a capitalist society, you have individuals and businesses that own their own property. They own the means of production. Um, And he says that progress results when individuals follow their own self-interest. So in other words, if you let individuals make decisions and they follow what they think, what is best for them, their own self-interest, it's best for everyone. Uh, so businesses follow their own self-interest by competing for the consumer's money. And each business tries to produce goods or services that are better and less expensive than those of their competitors. So competition makes prices lower in a capitalist society. Consumers compete to buy the best goods at the lowest prices, and this competition shapes the market by affecting what businesses are able to sell. And he also says, and this is the big point here: government should not interfere in the economy because competition creates efficiency in business. So you have that this is what's called laissez-faire economics. It's I believe it's French word that that means leave it alone. Okay, laissez-faire means leave it alone. In other words, the government should not interfere in the economy. They should just leave people to make their own decisions, and this creates efficiency and the best prices for both consumer and the producer. Capitalism is an economic model based on private ownership of property and the desire to make profits. We talked about that. And then laissez-faire is the idea that the economy thrives when the government doesn't interfere with businesses and allows a free market to exist. So government doesn't interfere with businesses. You have a free market where producers and consumers can compete for the best prices for both of them. According to Adam Smith, price is determined by supply and demand. And this is kind of what you learn in economics classes. You learn supply and demand and how to like chart that and things like that. But that's not for this class. All right, we're gonna skip this. All right, here we go. Here we go. We're going through this pretty quickly. That's what I thought. All right. So during the Enlightenment. Sorry about that. During the Enlightenment, people throughout Europe and America began to study, read, and philosophize about new ideas. So they're getting new ideas and producing new ideas in the Enlightenment, and that's kind of and these are able to spread pretty quickly. And there's it's kind of you could call it like a rise of academics and a rise of philosophers, especially during this time. To collect these new ideas and make them accessible, Denis Diderot created the first encyclopedia. So we have your first encyclopedia during this time, and it's called Encyclopedia or Encyclopediae in the original language here. And it included essays and sketches on a wide variety of political, scientific, and cultural ideas. So it's kind of a collection of all these ideas, and and where you can read about all of them in one place, which is kind of what an encyclopedia is. Which what encyclopedias are today, I should say. Encyclopedia, which was what Denis Diderot called this, was it spread the ideas of the Enlightenment and the scientific revolution. Most Europeans had a traditional view of women. Okay, during this time, they had a traditional view of women as housewives, mothers, and not equals to men. But these new Enlightenment ideas start to spread, and they inspire efforts to improve women's status. The women's status should improve because because they they are not seen as equals. So the Enlightenment ideas start to see women as being equal in value to men, and improve. They wanted to improve women's status in the world. Madame Jaffrine hosted salons, and she spoke her mind. In that picture we saw earlier, she is in there. So you have you have a woman in the middle of these discussions, and showing people that, hey, I'm just as smart as these men around me, and this starts to change people's ideas of women and their place in society and things like that. Some women, like Mary Wollstonecraft, argued for more opportunities for education and professions. So, in other words, women should be educated just like men, and they should have more opportunities for different professions. They shouldn't just be expected to stay home and raise kids, for their entire lives, and that's it. So she wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Woman, where she put forward her ideas on women's rights, and she is one of the first in this large feminist movement. She's kind of known as the mother of the feminist movement, that starts around this time and continues until women get the right to vote, and those sorts of things that happen later. Okay. All right. Then kings. What do people think about kings and divine right of kings and that sort of thing? So Enlightenment philosophers attacked absolute kings like Louis XIV in France, who we'll talk more about later. Him and Louis XVI, at least, and then Peter the Great in Russia. These are absolute monarchs or absolute kings that have absolute power. They can do whatever they want. Most philosophers believe that the best form of government was a limited monarchy that respected citizens' rights. So you've got instead of an absolute monarchy where the king can do whatever he wants, they believed in a limited monarchy where the king does have some power, but he has limited powers, and either there's a constitution or a set of laws that kind of restricts the powers of the king. Some powerful monarchs, known as enlightened despots, they listened to new ideas and they tried to improve the lives of their citizens. One of these later is Catherine the Great in Russia. She's kind of known as an enlightened despot later because she uses Enlightenment ideas. She has some French philosophers like come to lunch with her, and she tries to establish these Enlightenment ideas in Russia and give people more rights. That's just one example. There's plenty of examples of enlightened despots, however. So the old idea was that a monarch's rule is justified. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm trying to move it over here. There we go. So the old idea was that a monarch's rule was justified by divine right. That God gives them the right to rule, but the new idea here is that a government's power comes from the consent of the governed. That the government gets its rights from the people, the people that they govern, and the people can take away that consent. They can take away that power if they choose to. Okay, all right. Here we go. All right. Also, another changing idea is the relationship between the ruler and the state. So the old idea here was that the state and its citizens exist to serve the monarch. So the monarch is kind of the most important, and everyone is there to do what's best for the monarch. Louis XIV reportedly said, "I am the state," meaning that he is, he is the most important in the government, and everyone's kind of there for him. And basically, he can do whatever he wants. The new idea is that the monarch exists to serve the state and support the citizens' welfare. The monarch is there in order to make sure that the government and the citizens are doing well, and he's there to do what's best for them. As Frederick the Great said, a ruler is only the first servant of the state. Frederick the Great is another, I believe in Prussia. Yeah, Frederick the Great is in Prussia. He's another enlightened despot that uses the ideas of of the Enlightenment to improve the lives of his citizens. Okay. Um, so, so enlightened despots, and here's a couple of those: favored religious tolerance, tax reform, reduced government spending, and legal rights. So these are just some of the ideas that they came up with, that people can belong to whatever religion they want. That they shouldn't be taxing the people as much, and that means that you're going to have to reduce the spending of the government, not spend so much on things for the monarch and things like that, but not tax your people as much, and having a set of laws and legal rights for their citizens. All right, Frederick the Great of Prussia granted religious freedom, abolished torture, improved education. All of those things he did in Prussia, which is like where Germany and Poland are now. That's where Prussia was. Catherine the Great frequently wrote to Voltaire and considered protecting the rights of her citizens. She didn't get as far as she wanted to while she was alive, but but she was very, very entrenched in these ideas of the Enlightenment, which she's from Prussia as well, I believe, and then she becomes the monarch in Russia, which I know is a little bit confusing. Then Joseph II of Austria granted freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and he required peasants to be paid for their work. So peasants start being paid under Joseph II of Austria, and then he grants a lot of the freedoms that we kind of take for granted today: freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. Those First Amendment freedoms that we have in the United States. So all of these are enlightened despots. They're favoring things they're favoring ideas and policies that make things better for their citizens. All right, revolutions, as I believe the last one here. So as the Enlightenment spread, citizens began questioning the authority of their kings, and as a result, revolutionary wars broke out in America, in France, and in Latin America, and they broke out for independence and liberty. These revolutions are for independence from their mother countries, and for rights that they did not have, for freedoms that they did not have under these European rulers, or in the case of France, they're revolting against an absolute monarch that wasn't giving them the rights that they believed. So the Enlightenment really kicks off this revolution in France. Plus, the American Revolution had just happened as well. So both of those kind of kick off this revolution in France and cause them to revolt against their ruler in order to secure the rights that they believe they should have. Authority of kings is a huge thing to question, and that really sets a precedent for later revolutions, and a lot happened really quickly, which is why in this unit, which covers 1750 to 1900, we're going to just talk about revolutions, which includes the Industrial Revolution, which is a little bit different. But a lot of these Atlantic revolutions, as we're going to call them, happening on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. That's a huge part of what we're going to be talking about in this unit. Okay. All right. Let's see. That is it. That's all we've got. That's all we've got for today. So that kind of introduces you to this unit and what we're going to be talking about. So make sure that you have all the notes that you should have. And I will talk to you all again soon. Y'all have a good day.